Hi, I just wanted to check in from the District Attorney's Office and give everyone in the community an update on some of the important legislation that we've been supporting and that we've been advocating for a couple of years now. I think a lot of folks know that we were instrumental in both drafting and trying to bring together support for House Bill 143, which is a really important piece of legislation that would add new protections for crime victims in the state. And one of the things that we were trying to do is really reduce the harm and the secondary trauma that a lot of our victims, especially our child victims and other vulnerable adults and survivors of sexual assault have to go through in various aspects of our criminal justice system, where we force a lot of these victims and survivors to tell their story again and again and again in ways that really lead to a lot of trauma. As some folks may know, House Bill 143 is not moving forward. And I got a phone call yesterday from some of the advocates up in Santa Fe letting me know that we wouldn't be having a hearing on that bill in the House Judiciary Committee, and that simply put, there just weren't the votes for it. I want to start by doing a couple of things that I'm going to try and do more of, and that's recognizing some really strong and important folks who are instrumental in doing this kind of work. And the first thing I'd like to do is thank Representative Meredith Dixon. She's a freshman legislature here in Albuquerque. She showed a lot of courage and a lot of commitment, and really a real deep sense of what it means for victims to go through this. And I want to thank her for being willing when others weren't to step forward and make the case for this legislation. I also want to thank and recognize our friends in the advocacy world, people that do work on behalf of child abuse victims and survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. They know firsthand through the work that they do and the people that they try to help and serve how traumatic the criminal justice system can be, and how important this type of legislation is. But more than any of that, I want to thank the victims and the survivors who had the courage to share their story and tell their story to not only members of the legislature but to the public. It takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of guts to go through what they have endured and still have the courage to come out on the other side and share that with others. So I want to thank all of them, and I want to, despite the fact that we're disappointed, and despite the fact that we'd hoped for a better outcome, I want everyone that's engaged in this work to know that we're not going to give up. We're just not going to stop fighting for our victims, and we're not going to stop elevating their story and talking about ways we can improve the criminal justice system. There are a lot of tough issues in front of the New Mexico legislature, as I think people all work towards trying to build a better system, to try and build a system that reflects the best of who we are. A lot of that work is going to involve thinking differently about enforcement, thinking differently about probation and parole, thinking differently about sentencing. And it's important for law enforcement officers and prosecutors to be part of that conversation in ways that we haven't really been a part of that conversation. And when we do that, we have an obligation to not just talk about the interests of law enforcement agencies and police and prosecutors, but ultimately to talk more about the people that we work with every day and the people we try to help and we try to serve. And so that's my commitment to you, that this is a setback and it's a disappointment, but it's not the end of the fight. It's not the end of the conversation. And I'm going to do everything that I can to keep speaking out for victims. I'm going to do everything I can to raise their voices up and let the community know what we need to do inside this system to do right by them and build a system that we can all be proud of. So, it's a moment for reflection, and obviously a lot of us invest a lot of time, energy, and effort into this, but I really think this is the beginning of a long, long struggle. And I wanted to, again, thank the sponsor, thank our advocates and friends, and more than you can possibly imagine, express my admiration for those victims, for having the strength and courage to tell their story. We're going to keep telling their story until we fix this system. And so that's it for now, and we appreciate you following this important bill and this piece of legislation. And like I said, this is just the beginning. Thanks.